Welcome everyone to OnPodcast, the On Microsoft podcast, where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I'm your host, Graham Anderson, and we have a week of news. We have news about regulations, regulatory bodies. We have Microsoft adding and stuffing things more into Outlook. We got news about all kinds of things. Some of the biggest headlines for this week start off with Xbox head Phil Spencer releasing a statement about the UK's concerns about the Activision Blizzard acquisition. The statement came out, and it seemed like everyone kind of ran with this before he actually got to find out the root cause of it. But according to a blog post posted by Phil Spencer, where he says Activision Blizzard has some of the world's best-selling and most recognizable gaming franchises, such as Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and thus the CMA is concerned that if Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard, it could harm rivals, including recent and future entrants into gaming, by refusing them access to Activision Blizzard games or providing access on much worse terms. He basically wrote an entire blog post saying, hey, guys, don't worry about it. We plan to keep a lot of the deals in place. And for anything that you are concerned about, we also are going to move to the cloud, so that this idea that we have a industry-leading console business, which, there's a distant second as of right now, at least as of last generation, it won't be a thing, because we're going to be putting everything to the cloud, and people will be able to get their things, get their games, and have access to it via the cloud or PC. And those things that were accessible on PS4 will remain to be on PS4. As far as the specific concerns that the CMA, which is the consumer regulatory body in the UK, is concerned about, it goes as such. The CMA has also received evidence, and this is, based on their reporting that they have. The CMA has also received evidence about the potential impact of combining Activision Blizzard with Microsoft's broader ecosystem. Microsoft already has a leading gaming console, Xbox, a leading cloud platform, Azure, and the leading PC operating system, Windows, all of which could be important to its success in cloud gaming. The CMA is concerned that Microsoft could leverage Activision Blizzard's games together with Microsoft's strength across consoles, cloud, and PC operating systems to damage competition in the nascent market for cloud gaming. What they're addressing is the fact that PlayStation is just now or rebooting their cloud streaming service. I guess they don't consider Luna any sort of competition, unfortunately, and the same goes with Stadia, which, again, could all be separate arguments. The CMA considers that these concerns warrant an in-depth Phase 2 investigation. Microsoft and Activision Blizzard now have 5 working days, this came out earlier this week, to submit proposals to address the CMA's concern. If suitable proposals are not submitted, the deal will be referred to Phase 2 investigation. This is essentially a threat to Microsoft, which prompted the blog post that we got from Phil Spencer. Now, those of you wondering, what does a Phase 2 investigation involve? It allows an in-depth panel of experts to probe in more depth the risks that are identified in Phase 1. At Phase 2, the CMA appoints an independent panel to examine the deal in more depth and evaluate whether it's more likely than not that a substantial lessening of competition will occur as a result of the merger, a higher threshold than Phase 1. It is typically builds on the work and evidence from Phase 1 with more third-party engagement via request or information, and uses the statutory powers in gathering internal documents. So they're basically going to come over all the deals and see if there are any loopholes that Microsoft might try and leverage to give themselves a leg up. Now, what Microsoft kind of has going for them, I suppose, is that as this investigation is underway, Sony just signed a mobile gaming division. I think they just picked up another studio as well. So, I mean, Microsoft can point to saying, hey, as much as you are worried about us, there is Sony making smaller deals, but multiple smaller deals to compete. So unless you plan to regulate them the same way, perhaps let us get through with this. I don't think they're going to use those words, because that's not legalese and it may just sound rude. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this and see where this goes. As of right now, Phil Spencer's got a lot of tap dancing to do to assuage fears, especially based on Microsoft's historical presence in the UK and anti-competitive knocks that they've had against them. Hopefully the UK doesn't evaluate based on historicals of that and just based on individual purchases at the time of purchase. Otherwise, it could seem like an unfair ruling against them based on a different segment of business that they're trying to get into or leverage. Moving on, we have the EU sort of doing the same thing, but when it comes to cloud licensing, and for good reason. We have the headline that Microsoft addresses anti competitive cloud licensing, but only in certain regions. Back in 2019, Microsoft changed the way it structured its licensing deals for Azure and other cloud based software and how it integrates with third party platforms. Basically, what they did was they raised the price across the board, but then built in steep incentives and discounts into first party integration. So if you're already using Windows OS, a lot of the stuff that you tied into with Azure just was ready and supported all of these discounts, which made it just kind of a no brainer for people who were using those platforms together. Unfortunately, if you were using Google or AWS, it was really unfair. It seemed least what pricing wise to continue to do so. And they've been doing this, like I said, for about 3 years now, and people have been complaining. And it got to the point where it was boiling over, and the EU decided to step in and say, "Hey, you need to do something about this because this is getting ridiculous." So earlier this week, Microsoft announced that there are changes to its EU cloud licensing structure, and they did this via a blog post titled "Making European Cloud Providers More Competitive." And here are some of the things that they decided to do to address this. They will introduce a new flexible virtualization benefit for customers that will greatly expand customer choice when outsourcing. Using under the benefits, customers with software assurance or subscription licensing will be able to use their own licensed software to build and or install solutions and run them on any cloud provider's infrastructure. The other thing that they're going to be doing is that they will be adding options for customers with software assurance or subscription licenses to Windows servers and on virtual core bases. Under this model, customers can buy licenses from only the virtual cores that they need, subject to a per VM minimum, without being tied to a physical number of cores on the server. Another thing that they're going to be doing is they're making it easier to virtualize Windows 10 or Windows 11 by eliminating the Virtual Desktop Application VDA add-on licensing requirement for Microsoft 365 F3s and Microsoft 365 E3s and E5s as well. So that should help with people who are running these things in Linux or whatnot. The other thing they're going to be doing is under the new flexible virtualization benefits, customers can now work with partners in the cloud solutions provider program to get pre-built hosted desktops and server solutions and either bring their own license or get the license from the partner. Lastly, customers will have the choice of 1 and 3 year subscriptions for many products, including Windows Server, remote desktop servers, and SQL servers through partners in the Cloud Solutions Provider Program. So these are some things that they've done. I believe that these go into effect October 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And I think in between, at least the next 4 weeks, they're going to be working with some of their partner solutions to kind of make their pricing a little more sustainable and kind of in line with, their, competition or partners, so to speak, third-party partners in AWS and Google. Again, this only applies to the EU, unfortunately, despite there being complaints from people in the US as well. We don't know when or if that will be addressed, but for those of you in the EU region, look to have these discounts and these pricing changes occur October 1st. Now, moving on to Monday, because those are just some of the big headlines. We also had regular news to deal with. Microsoft Excel now lets users insert images in cells. And you sort of could do this in a very rudimentary way in Excel, but Microsoft recently rolled out a new feature to Excel in the Office Insider program, the image function, which allows users to insert images directly into cells. Previously, when inserting images into cells, the presentation was not seamless, as I just mentioned. Again, this is for insiders, unfortunately, but I do think this will be rolling out pretty soon. So if you're in the Insider program, and I do mean for Office, not just Windows, you should be able to see this feature. And hopefully, I don't know, they didn't label a time frame for when it's going to be built for everybody, but I would assume probably the next month or so, depending on if they keep the history with the releases from Insider programs to live programs the same. Moving on to Tuesday, Microsoft To-Do rolls out to Outlook for Windows. So the big, heavy, honking Outlook client for Windows is now getting To-Dos in it. And if you haven't gotten it yet, you'll notice it in the top left corner, kind of where they're bundling a bunch of additional things like calendar and contacts and some other things. They're going to be in that left-hand panel. And that's where you'll see it. What this means is that users can now, according to Microsoft, be more productive. We hear that word all the time. To do tasks and planning your day right from the Outlook windows. It comes with a dark theme. These are some of the specifics. It comes with a dark theme to enhance readability that can easily be set by changing your Outlook theme to dark. Microsoft To Do is also available to Microsoft 365 current channel users running the following versions of Outlook for Windows. And those versions count as 2201, build 14827.20,000 or later. And then current channel version is 2207, build 15427.20,000 and later. Again, and it makes sense because, I mean, if you go to your To-Do, you can integrate your flagged emails as top priority and they show up your to-do list as to basically take care of. And it only makes sense that, this kind of feature works backwards at the same thing. So you can basically go from putting things in your to-do on your phone, on your mobile device or whatever, and having them show up in Outlook and remembering to do them. Because there are a lot of times where people are out and about, myself included, and we make a to-do, and then you get home and your device isn't with you, and it's going off somewhere else in the room, making noise saying, hey, do me, and you're like, well, I don't remember it because I left it somewhere else. Now it'll show up on your desktop. For those of you who think this is information overload, I also agree with that too. So I don't know how the performance is going to be or altered with this being added to Outlook. I will test it and let you guys know, but hopefully, with this new Outlook client, it'll be lighter and all these new features that they're adding will just be icing on the cake versus like a heavy syrup on a ton of sloppy pancakes. Microsoft on Tuesday also applied for a US trademark for XCloud, which seems odd because they've had it in project mode for, it feels like 3.5, 4 years now. I don't know if this is someone who let it slip through the cracks or if this is going to be kind of a SkyDrive situation all over again. But on Tuesday, Microsoft applied for the US trademark for xCloud, and this was brought to us via Illumia Italia, which is the Italian website / Twitter handle that we follow for a lot of sleuth or leaked information. So again, we're kind of predicting that they're just going to officially call it xCloud, even though we've all been calling it xCloud, so this just makes sense. We'll see if they get it granted though, because some people might have just bought it and sat on it 3.5 years ago when they started testing it. So we wish them the best of luck for it because I don't want to have to start calling it OneCloud like we had to do with OneDrive from SkyDrive. Moving on to Wednesday, Microsoft launches an adoption score to help customers optimize my Microsoft 365 subscriptions. And again, this is on Wednesday. The new adoption score is basically a program that is relabeled after, I think, what was it called? It used to be called something else, productivity score. And what it does is it gives admins basically employee score on the programs that they're using, the amount of time it takes them to get acquainted with it, the productivity levels from those programs. It's kind of a nanny state, to be honest with you. But for those who want to optimize their work environments and maybe just help their employees, maybe this is a genuine altruistic endeavor. They've now renamed it and given it some new features. The adoption score is available as a compatibility within Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So if you have that, you can go find it there. Global admins must approve both adoption score and the people experiencing the categories to see times and trends, which is new features that they're adding to it. Microsoft, pleads that this, is privacy first and privacy driven. So a lot of the information is anonymized. The admins will just see, hey, we implemented maybe Microsoft Stream or Viva or something like that. And here's a score for it after 4 weeks. People are struggling with it. And so maybe we need to make some tweaks to it. Or people have adopted it and moved quickly on with it. Or maybe we added a new feature in Outlook and people have adopted that and moved on with it. The other thing that happened on Wednesday was Microsoft has a new game install options for Xbox OS. So this is the best part, for those of you who still have an Xbox One or or an Xbox S or an aging Xbox piece of hardware, more modern ones. you'll now be able to assign where games are stored. Xbox gamers will soon be able to select default storage locations for different game types thanks to the new feature. And this is only in the alpha ring as of right now, but hopefully it'll roll out to everybody else. So if you, again, have an expansion card, a thumb drive, or something like that, and you want to put some of those older 360 compatible, backwards compatible games on there just to have, plug it into your device and run it from there, because they're not, super modern games that need to be optimized for the Xbox One, and you need to have the storage on there. You'll be able to store a lot more on these, and again, they'll just go directly to it. So there's a new interface for that. Hopefully, they bring that to any future hardware as well. It should be that simple to just assign it to where you want to. Thursday, we had some big news about the U.S. Army continuing to use or test Hololens headsets. The IVS technology that they've been working with the military is still going forward. There was a bit of controversy. A ton of controversy for this whole project leading up to the May testing, I believe. They had about a month of field testing to get through, and the U.S. Army said that it would determine after that field test whether or not they were going to move forward with the program. Leading up to that, they had been making a bunch of cuts. They've also been doubting the technology and Microsoft's ability to keep up with their standards, but it seems like all is going well. According to a post from the Defense blog, the IVS capabilities have been significantly expanded in the last iteration, and that's quoting David Morse, the lead network engineer for MITRE Corporations and Army Platform Division. Quote, the major new technologies we're experimenting with today are the Tactical Scalable Manet. I don't know if that's an acronym. It's MANET waveform, which is bringing data down to forward tactical edge to the dismounted soldiers and the vehicles, and connecting those systems together so that everybody has awareness of where the others are, Morris said. You can send messages, lay down graphic overlays, mission data, etc., so that you've got better capabilities that previously were only available at a command post. So again, you're basically putting a command post on your head and being able to give out orders and geolocations and a bunch of other things. The other big news is that they're testing out with something called Striker. The Striker apparently is an eight-wheeled vehicle, or I don't know if it's unmanned or it's an eight-wheeled vehicle that will allow soldiers to basically, use, I guess, less bodies or deploy fewer human bodies into the field, but be as effective as they need to be. Includes just having the gun camera and the relatively small forward and reverse cameras on this Striker device. Now we've got the high-end cameras all the way around the vehicles with both day and night vision. The soldiers wearing the new IVS technology are able to use those cameras and access them while they're en route to mission. Instead of staring at a blank steel wall, they can keep up with what's going on around the vehicle. They can also switch to tactical map modes so they can see what's going on around their broader mission area. So again, they send this vehicle in as kind of a scout, and they can see, all kind of map overlays through, they can also turn on different heat visions and other visionary led technologies to kind of navigate this. And again, like I said, this is all in hopes of sending fewer people into battle or combat situations to, lose their life. That's always a good thing. Lastly, we have this Friday. This is where Surface Duo 2 stock is running out news information. Basically, it seems like on the Microsoft website that they are no longer fulfilling device orders for the Surface Duo 2. And like I said, this is kind of leading to a section I'm going to do in a second about Surface hardware rumors and roundups. Now, the other thing I'm going to say for Friday before we get into the Surface stuff is that Halo Infinite's local campaign split screen co-op has been canceled. So if you're telling your buddy, get ready, we're going to hop on the couch and get back to 2000 and start playing video games the old school way, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And this is the reason why. In order to improve and accelerate ongoing live services development and to better address player feedback and quality of life updates, we have reallocated studio resources and are no longer working on local campaign split screen co-op. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I started playing Halo to begin with, that I was super excited for it. So I'm very disappointed in this. I wish more games will implement the couch co-op availability and support, because, again, it's harder to get these consoles these days. And if you have a buddy who has it, I think it'd just be great to be able to play co-op, and even if you play co-op online, that's just more people playing. Instead of forcing us all to have our individual consoles and find our own individual screens. What if you have a family member? Now you have to buy. I mean, I know it's great for business, but you have to buy two Xboxes and you have to play in different rooms because you're not gonna have two screens set up. And I can just hop on the couch with my brother and sister and we can get going at a game. I think that is great, and I thought Halo would, be one of the use case, the best showcases for it because it was back in the day. Like I said, this the last bit of things that we're going to talk about is the Surface Roundup, which is basically, again, rumors about the Surface Duo running out and what that can mean for Surface Duo 3. That Microsoft is focusing on 12L, getting that out the door, and maybe 13 as well, depending on if you have a Duo or Duo 2. And that they are basically wiping the board clean of all Duo devices and Duo development and support, so they can focus on this next Duo device. I don't believe that. I think they are just not selling it. Some people are speculating they're going to flash a new round of devices with 12L before they start reselling them again, which would make it easier than having to do a bunch of over-the-air updates, so to speak. So that's one rumor. The other rumor we have is about the Surface Pro 9 coming up and the Surface Pro X and what that could mean when they combine the two potentially. Again, our buddy over at Windows Central, Zach Bowden, was talking about there's rumors that Microsoft may combine the Surface Pro X this year with the Surface Pro. I think the 9 is the one that they're going to be coming out with. And I mean, there's all the more reason to believe that because they have essentially the same chassis. One's a little thicker than the other. So they can essentially go in and start making the distinction between fanless and not, and ones with fans, and those would just be the Intel models. The other reason why this has life to it is because a lot of us in the industry believe that Windows on ARM is getting a second, third, maybe fourth breath of life because thanks to Apple and their M1 chips and the fact that people are sort of paying attention to ARM-based development for desktop, that Microsoft is finally going to put forth an effort after 4 previous years of saying they were there. This is really going to help push them. And the way they do that is by showcasing it, kind of dogfooding. If they make their Surface Pro lines all just Surface Pro, and the only distinction is one has ARM and is fanless and has more battery versus one that is Intel, has a fan. It's kind of like what they did with the MacBook. You can get an Intel one, you can get an M1 one. At some point, I think ideally Microsoft's future is that they want to do a lot more with ARM. Their translation layer could use a little bit more work. We would love to see people be able to use Adobe Premiere full-fledged version on an ARM device, and I think at that point you might have every YouTuber sold on Windows on ARM right now. That's been one of the big distinctions. Like, oh, we can do our video editing and creations on a Mac One, but we can't do it on Windows on ARM, so it's pooey. We can't use it. Once they get that, and that's the barrier to entry is lowered for that, and they can say, oh, I can do video editing on this thing. I think we can start saying like, hey, Windows on ARM is a full-fledged thing. I also believe that they're going to be putting some ARM devices into some of their laptops. The other thing about ARM is that it comes with LTE connectivity. So you're going to get some Surface devices, Surface laptops that have LTE connectivity, some Surface Pros that have LTE connectivity. I don't know, aside from maybe battery life, what the big gain is for LTE though, because LTE variants is because again, people don't want a secondary plan. They don't want another data plan. So LTE doesn't really mean much for businesses who are going to provide it. That's great. But even then the connectivity is kind of spotty for whatever reason. But again, I think that whenever we have the Surface event, that seems to be a pretty good indicator that we're going to be seeing just the Surface Pro. And hopefully, this is going to be the 10th anniversary of Surface Pro. So I don't know if they're just going to stick with the Surface Pro X for the entire line. And then you just have ARM, or Surface Pro X ARM or Surface Pro X Intel. Maybe they'll do like Lenovo does, where they indicate Surface Pro X I of AMD. They'd have Surface Pro X Q for Qualcomm or something. I don't know. But that is a speculation. I believe that is all of the news for this week. I want to thank you guys all for hanging out with me and listening to some of my crazy theories. and keeping an eye on Microsoft and the EU as well. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns about how to make this podcast better, always leave them down in the comments. I would love more people to subscribe and follow us on Microsoft. If not, you can always go visit the website. That's where we keep all of our news fresh and up to date. You can also follow us on Twitter, where we also keep, just kind of the headlines to throw out there to see if you're interested in any of the news for the week. We also have our buddy Brad, who's over at on Pinterest, who's keeping up with all the Xbox news. And like I said, as this acquisition starts to get rolling, get some steam behind it, I'm pretty sure we're going to have tons of news about that and all of the new release games that are being released. Yeah, as I want to say, I'm me, you're you. Have a good day.